Hi, everyone. Welcome to our event tonight, From Tools to Teams. We are very excited that you're here to join us to explore the pathways that we offer here at Miller-Motte College in our construction trades and management programs. Tonight, we hope that it's engaging for you, and it's designed to help you understand where your strengths fit in the world of trades and construction trades management. I'm joined by two of our instructors, Devin, Mann, and Gerald Collins, and they bring real-world industry experience and insight, so you'll hear a lot from them this evening. So if you two would like to introduce yourselves, Devin?
Sure. My name is Devin Mann. Like I said, I've been teaching in the construction trades management program. I've spent about 15, 20 years in construction trades, various levels, various jobs, various positions. Also about 7 years in the military, so kind of a little bit of blend with that. So, yeah.
That's great. Gerald, tell us about you.
Hey, all right. So my name's Gerald Collins. I think my very first job was in 1999. I got to start helping construction and trades, the workers and electrician helper, HVAC helper. Then I finally went on to get some diplomas in the trades and later my career with a master's degree. And had the opportunity to work in the construction field. I got to work as a diesel mechanic, even underground coal miner. So a lot of different areas. My last position was a construction project manager. So a lot of good information to bring to the table.
That's great. Well, we're excited that you're both here. My name's VanKirk. I'm the Director of Academic Operations for Miller-Motte College Online. And we also have Kate Bashirs, who is the Director of Admissions in the chat. So if you have any questions for admissions, you can ask Kate in the chat and she would be happy to answer any of those or direct you to the person who can answer those questions for you. So let's go ahead and jump in and start discovering a pathway for you. So before we get started with some interactive parts in our presentation, here's the big picture of the programs that we offer. We have diploma and certificate programs at our ground campuses, which include combination welding, electrical, HVAC, and plumbing. And those equip you with the hands-on training programs that get you job ready quickly, right? Those are shorter programs that get you in the field. From there, we have an Associate of Applied Science degree in Construction Trades Management. This degree is 100% online, and then you can even continue your online degree to earn a Bachelor of Science degree in Construction Trades Management. And then every option builds your strengths and then opens different career opportunities. And that's really what we're going to focus on this evening, is what opportunities are available to you at each level, and what skills will you develop at each degree level that we have here at Miller-Motte College. Okay, so let's get to know a little bit about you and a little bit about Devin and Gerald. So let's start with a quick poll about work style. So think about when you begin a task. What's the very first thing that you do? Think about, are you the person that just jumps right in and you start building, testing, tinkering? Or are you the person that you have to kind of first figure out, you're kind of the planner. You first have to figure out what everyone's doing, what everyone's role is, and how we'll finish on time? Or are you the person who needs to step back, look at the big picture before you can begin anything? If you want to just type into the chat like the letter A, B, or C, and kind of think about who you are when you first begin a task. And, the reason we ask this is because these are kind of natural instincts that show up in whether it's a job site or just any project or task that we might do in everyday life. And they help us learn a little bit about what we are, help us develop our strengths and what we might be good at as we explore career pathways. So, Devin, if you want to start maybe and share maybe which one of these connects most with you, especially maybe early on in your career?
Sure. Like Gerald was saying, I started off construction very early on, just doing the grunt work. But I always wanted to know the end state. No matter what the project was, I had to know and understand what the end goal was. Because the way I looked at it, I can work better, more efficiently if I understand what the final steps are going to be. And so that innate desire kind of started pushing me towards the roles of, even when doing the trades, trying to step up and kind of help, lead, for lack of better words. Because I always wanted, I was more I wanted to step back, see big picture, know end in mind, know how what we're doing today affects somebody else tomorrow. Because if I didn't like to just to do what I did in that small piece, I wanted to know the whole big picture of everything I was working on and the other trades as well. But
I see we have a couple in our audience that can relate to your way of thinking as well. How about you, Gerald?
Well, I think when I first started, I'm guilty of all three. I think I have done them all. I think early in my career, I would like to just jump in and tinker with it and just see what it's doing, what it's supposed to do. But I did notice that I was getting into some trouble. I was having to take extra steps, or I would complete something that wasn't ready to be completed, and then we had to redo it. So now, with the experience, I like to step back and look at the big picture. So definitely see now. I got to work in construction planning for, I want to say, 6 or 7 years, and I think that helped a lot. Without that experience, I might still have the mindset of, hey, just jumping in.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's kind of shift gears a little bit. So we've talked about how we naturally work. Let's think about motivation and what actually gives you energy when you start a project. So if we think about, when we talk about what gives you energy, that's what excites you when you're working on something. So again, you can just type those letters into the chat. Are you the person that gets excited at bringing an idea to life with your hands? Or are you a person that gets excited or gets energy from being the go-to person who keeps everything running smoothly? Or are you the person that really enjoys shaping the overall direction and making the important calls? So what would you say gives you the most energy when you are involved in that project? And One thing that energizes us, when we know what energizes us, it helps point us like into the roles that we would thrive in. So again, like Devin, if you want to kind of chime in,
Sure.
and how did you discover like what energized you?
Kind of like what Gerald said on the last question. It's a lot of all three. It really is. As builders, we love working with our hands. We love seeing the finished product. It's the best thing in the world. Like, to know that you had a part in making something from nothing into what's going to stand for generations. But then as you start growing with what you're doing, being that go-to person, the one that is kind of the answer for a lot of things. But then that next C step is a hard one, because it's not so much making the important calls as it's a lot of taking the responsibility of the wrong calls, of the bad calls. That's a lot harder. That took me a longer to get used to and more comfortable with doing. But I definitely see myself, that's where the end all be all, because not everyone can do that, can take the blame and the pressure of it. Because when I've been on jobs that $250,000 mistake because somebody read a wrong number, and who's at fault? And if you cannot handle that pressure of it, you're not in that position. You shouldn't be in that position. And so once you realize if you can handle that kind of pressure, then you'll be successful, because the other ones kind of follow suit. But I now, especially with the military and then construction, as an officer in the military, I had to take the pressure. It was, my word was the final word, right or wrong, and we were moving forward. And that kind of really helped shape with my construction experience as well. So kind of they go hand in hand for me. But so a little bit of all three, but then once I realized I can handle C, that's kind of where I was at with it a lot. But it took me a while to learn that.
Mm-hmm. Gerald?
Yeah, that was a good answer, Devin. I kind of feel the same way. I don't want to sound redundant, but it's kind of in the beginning, just seeing something come to life that you worked on a project, whether it's big or small. It could be a major project or as simple as a little HVAC install. But when you see it where it's supposed to be, doing what it's supposed to be doing, and the customer is excited that they have their cooling now or their heat or something, it makes you feel good. And I think C is something that comes later in the career, when you can make the important calls, when you get that experience. There's some things in the beginning you're just not going to know. You need that time. You need to see some troubles and some mistakes before to make those calls. So I think the beginning, A and B, and then later in my career, C is in there as well.
So I see in our audience we have a couple A's, a couple B's, and one person who is A and B. So I think kind of probably falls in line with where they are in their career and pathways. Is there any advice that you could give them of how you? I mean, I hear time, I hear experience. Any other advice that you would give them on how you get more comfortable, either taking responsibility for the things that go wrong or making the important calls, other than time and experience?
I would say ask why. If you're a tech on a job, but you're not the lead person on the job, and you're watching the lead person do things, I want to know why you're doing this, why you're making the decision. I would ask why till I made everyone mad. But I wanted to understand. I wanted to understand your rationale. I wanted to understand your thought process. And if you ask why enough and start learning the little things, you can start growing and learning the bigger things. I got to ask the project managers. I'd ask the owners of companies. I still, if I see somebody doing something that I've never seen before or something in a different manner, I'm going to go talk to them. Just walk up to a stranger. I've done a construction site. What are you doing? I want to know why you're doing that, just so I can understand how it all folds together. So the more I asked why, the more I started learning little things that aren't taught by most technicians, because it's either just in them or, oh, this is not your job. Got it. But I want to know why you're doing it. And so ask why.
That's great. Anything you want to add to that, Gerald?
Yeah. And that was also a good answer. It's always important to ask why. That way, and that might prevent you from making a mistake. But one thing that I was thinking also is, don't rush the process. Everybody starts out in the beginning. You don't have a choice. So learn as much as you can. And don't be ashamed if you make a mistake, because that's part of growing and learning. Chances are you're going to make a mistake. Don't be too hard on yourself. Just learn what happened, what went wrong, why it was a mistake, how can you correct it next time, what could you have done differently, and grow from it and move on. And that's where you'll have the experience later, is from those little mistakes in the beginning. But just keep safety first, because we don't want the mistakes to be something dangerous. Everybody wants their family, or see their family in the evenings when they get home from work. We don't want any accidents.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Really great advice. So, okay, so now that we know a little bit about our work style, what motivates us, what gives us energy, let's think about those career pathways. And thinking about if you chose mostly A's, if you chose mostly B's, or mostly C's, what that says about you and what would be, good pathways for you to take in the construction trades field. I'll talk a little bit about this, but I'm going to turn it back over to Devin and Gerald. If you chose mostly A's, if you can see on the screen, the craftsmanship, technical mastery, like the more hands-on stuff would be, a strength for you. Again, if you answered, if B was a better fit for you, then maybe our associate degree in construction trades management would be a really good pathway for you. And then if C was something that you felt yourself leaning towards, then maybe striving to get the Bachelor of Science in Construction Trades Management would be a good pathway for you. So do you want to talk about some of those skills that they'll learn and develop at each of those levels, kind of based on those answers? You want to build on that at all?
Sure. I don't mind talking a little bit about it. Obviously, like your hands-on thing. Like I said, most people start in trades, they really do start in the hands-on aspect of it. Very few people are going to come out of high school, then go straight into college, and then jump into, a leadership role. It's very rare, very select. It can happen, but generally speaking, most people do the hands-on. They find a trade they like, whether HVAC, plumbing. I mean, I've worked in HVAC, I've worked in plumbing, I've worked electrical, I worked for mechanical contractors. I've worked so many different trades, kind of bounce around and figure out, but I realized I want to run projects for a general contractor. So I started learning trade by trade by trade to learn a little bit of everybody, because I knew I wanted to run everything, the whole projects. But also, as I started to grow through it, whether getting my bachelor's and my master's degree, I also realized, as much as I love the hands-on, my body did not. I've had a lot of injuries, unfortunately, a lot of surgery. So I realized very early on that I physically cannot do the hands-on for much longer. So I started to educate myself so I can still be in the construction world, but I don't have to take the toll on my body. Because then there's days I just physically couldn't do it, but I was still running a project. And there's days if I felt great, I would go help the guys that were in the field, because I still love doing it. So as I educated myself and I learned more and I progressed, it gave me the flexibility that I wanted and needed at the time to kind of go from the field to the office and vice versa when I needed to. If I had to be in the field, I could for a little bit, but if I couldn't do it that day, I didn't have to, because I had other stuff I had to get done too. So,
yeah. Okay, sorry. Something I can add to that too. That was a good answer. When let's say you're fresh out of high school and you're trying to decide, this could be any time in your life or your career, but let's just use an example that you're right out of high school. You can shoot for it all. That's the best part. You can work on some of the diplomas and get some of the hands-on education, and then get your associate, go ahead and get your bachelor's. That way you're ready. You've got the education behind you. And you can still work as an electrician. You can still work as a plumber, welder, whatever makes you happy. But then if the time comes, there's an opportunity for advancement. Maybe your health starts to decline later and you need more of an office type setting, or less hands-on, less tugging on equipment and tools and stuff. So your education is there. You've got it. You're ready to go. So that's another way you can look at it too. So you don't have to put it off and wait. You can just go for it right now, and it's in your pocket ready for when you decide that you want to use that. And maybe your career will change. Maybe you decide that being an electrician's not for you. Well, with that bachelor's degree, there's still a lot of other opportunities, even different maintenance foreman positions, or a lot of management, because there's a lot of courses you'll take with the business side and leadership that'll help prepare you for management roles and other things. So I see it being a good program no matter where you are or where you're starting. I think it's going to help you.
That's great. And that is a perfect segue, Gerald, into kind of what we're going to talk about next with them is what will they learn in some of these programs, whether it's the diploma or certificate program, the Associate of Applied Science, or our Bachelor of Science. And so again, kind of what I think both of you alluded to is of how the skills kind of stack, and it are it's an extension of the previous degree. So if you guys want to just continue to kind of talk about what they would learn at each of these levels, and then some of the courses that they may take in the different programs, particularly online. So I know that since we teach in the associate the Bachelor of Science.
Okay.
So if we want to maybe talk a little bit about maybe the project management course, or the economics for trades course, or any of those courses that they may take when they're online, or the leadership. Gerald, if you want to highlight the leadership or any of the cabinet making or installation courses that they may take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll start to kind of touch on the diploma and certificate again, just in small terms.
Of course.
Like we talked about, I think Gerald and Amber both alluded to earlier, those are really the coursework that gets your hands on ready, gives you a good basic understanding of to go in when you finish that, or even while you're working, to start working as an HVAC tech, or doing welding, on the jobs. So those are very much courses that you do, and you find a job in that specific trade right away. But then as we start moving to the associates, and then you start dealing with projects as a whole, not any specific trade. Project management 1 and 2, I've been teaching those courses a lot lately. They're not trade specific. They're not HVAC specific or electrician specific. They are just how the projects run as a whole, how they schedule it overall, the communication aspect on how you talk and deal with other people, how you negotiate tactics, in smaller terms of how, like I said, you come together to figure out a solution. It's not a one-sided solution. It's a solution for the project as a whole. So you really start to develop more interpersonal skills, not just the technical side of the trade, but actually just how to associate and deal with other people, other trades as well. So.
Perfect. Thank you. Gerald?
Okay. So I get excited about some of the other stuff, like the leadership, strategic management, in classes like that. I think it's really important that just so much you can learn to prepare you to lead people, not be a slave driver, boss. That's not what people want. We want to work with people to lead them to get the project. So there's a lot of good opportunities, a lot of good the courses for the strategic management leadership. I mean, that's going to get you ready for that. There is some other business courses that's involved. One of the examples, spreadsheets for skills and trades. You'd be surprised how many times you have to use spreadsheets of some kind in this industry. There's just so much. There's so many lists of like getting your materials ready, or trying to prioritize which jobs you're working on that day. A lot of opportunities for using the spreadsheets. And then getting into some of the other courses, like the roofing applications and cabinet making and installation. So there are just some things that maybe you didn't see when you was doing the hands-on trade courses, that it's just opening up more doors and things. It's that way you understand the concept of how we lay out the like for the masonry, like how we lay out the wall and different aspects of the building. So it's important to get all of that.
If you don't mind, I'll jump in on it again.
Mhm. Of
And one
course.
aspect too, let's say you do go through HVAC, diploma or certificate, and you realize you love HVAC. There's still immense value to go on and getting a bachelor's degree, in this program. Because say you stay there, and okay, maybe you look at it first. Why do I need to know about masonry? Well, if you understand how the wall is structured, you're going to understand how your HVAC needs to run through it, and you're going to understand timing of when who comes first. You're going to understand the whole project, understand how you can collaborate better with your trades. Because I mean, when you have 20 different trades on one job and you're all trying to take up same space, and you're all trying to put your equipment in the same area, if you're not collaborating and working together, it's not going to work out. It's not a situation of 50 years ago that who got there first wins. That doesn't happen anymore. You have to work together. And so it's going to teach you that ability to work with other trades. So if you understand what somebody next to you is doing, you're going to do your job better, and it's going to make it to where you can work better together. So the project as a whole is going to go more smoothly. And that's the kind of, once you can learn that aspect, you're going to move up through a business, through a company, even if you didn't mean to. If you didn't want to move up, they're going to start looking at you to help lead that next thing because you understand the person beside you that doesn't work your trade.
That was a great connection. Yeah, thanks for chiming in and sharing that. That was great. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more, or hear a little bit more from Devin and Gerald, but we're going to talk, we're going to hear a little bit more about your experience and your pathway. They both have a very non-traditional path that they took in their careers, and both very different. So we can kind of go down the list, or you can just, kind of share a little bit about, the path that you guys have taken. But what initially led you into construction trades management?
Sure.
What was the initial draw to it?
Sure. I'll kind of start with my background a little bit. I went to community college for years. Started in high school. I started in a machine shop, machine tool. That's where I started in. And I ended up getting a job after that as a maintenance mechanic. I was doing mechanical work. But then eventually I found a job as a draftsman for a concrete company. And I did drafting in high school, and I loved it. So I took that job over. And then I started to slowly work towards running the projects. You think, we were doing rebar for concrete, but you have $1 million job of rebar. Sounds crazy, but some of them get massive. And I didn't even have an associate's degree at the time. So I was convinced, okay, you need to get associates, and then you really need to get your bachelor's. And I loved construction. So I started working full time and taking 1 or 2 classes at a time. Very similar to what Miller-Motte does. My classes were 4 weeks long for my bachelor's program. And then I went on to get a master's of engineering in construction management as well after that. So I did that while I worked. So it took me 11 years of college to get through my associates, my bachelor's, and my master's. And the whole time learning, moving from company, moving up from, I was a project coordinator, then a project manager. The last job I had at an actual company was lead scheduler. But this was a job that one project could be $250 million construction project. And so you're dealing with literally multi-billion dollars worth of construction projects. And you're bouncing around and scheduling thousands of, actions at a time, hundreds of trades, or about 100 trades on some of these projects are so massive. Different companies, different crews. So these schedules are just absolutely immense. Then finally I left and started my own business, and, using the same exact tools I was working through the whole time, I started running my own business with them. So, it's moving up the whole way, and then ultimately on my own, moving off on my own.
Great. Gerald?
Yeah, that was good. I will say one thing, and I know a lot of people's thinking this is more money, but that's the truth. I loved working with my hands. I love the trades, and it was always exciting to see a project come together. Um, and I remember starting out, the paychecks was very small compared to other people's, and I asked one day, I said, how do I move up? And education was always the word: bachelor's degree, education, more education. So from job to job, even my time as a diesel mechanic, I remember asking the manager at the garage, and he said, education, if unless you want to work 40 years and just take a gamble. But it was always education. When I went to work for the coal mines, it was a large coal company, and they had leadership programs. But the thing you had to have was a bachelor's degree in some sort of trade, engineering, management that was required. So it was always implanted in my mind, if I wanted to move up and make more money, that I had to get more education. And I worked as I finished my bachelor's and worked full time when I got my master's degree. Actually, I think I was working long hours in the coal mines and then trying to come out in time to go to college class when I got my master's degree. It's tough, but it's doable. So I recommend as much education as possible, no matter what field you decide you want to go into. It just opens up more doors and gives you more opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll shift gears a little bit. I feel like we've talked a lot about, a lot of the technical skills that are necessary and the technical skills that, help advance us in the career. But what about those? I know they're referred to as soft skills, or the human skills that maybe matter most in today's construction industry. In both the associate degree or the bachelor degree, our students take courses such as communication. They take a couple psychology courses and English courses. But what do you think matters the most in your industry as far as those soft skills, or those human skills to be successful?
I think for me, and I'm gonna explain what one of my bosses told me probably a decade ago. It was one of the best pieces of advice I've ever had. It really comes down to me communication. But when I say communication, he literally said, understand your audience and understand what they need to understand. If I'm talking to an engineer, I'm going to talk different than I am the owner, than I am the guy at the field out there digging the hole. They communicate differently. So me in my role, I had to understand how everyone communicates and communicate to what they need to understand. So it's really about how you communicate with people, not just how you talk, but what you talk, the way you talk, the way you explain things. I'll give you a prime example. I won a job just this week, oddly, for my company. The woman calls me up and says, you were not the lowest bid at all, but yours made the most sense. We went with you because you made sense. Somebody was higher, somebody was lower, but yours made sense. We understood it. We understood what you were going to do better than the other two. So that's why we want to go with you. So just that, if in a world that usually low man wins, they didn't, because they didn't articulate and effectively communicate to the customer their needs. So they could have had a better product than me. We won't know because they couldn't explain why. And I've had many, many situations where we've been on jobs and people are arguing, but they're saying the same thing in a different manner. And they don't even realize. So I'm sitting there stepping back and I realize they're arguing about the exact same thing and they want the exact same outcome, but they just don't even know it because they weren't communicating well with each other.
Yeah.
So many problems in construction and life in general can be squashed or even, stopped before they become a problem just by learning how to effectively communicate with each other. And sometimes I looked at it as I can change myself better than I can try to change somebody else. So I'm not going to try to make you speak the way I want. No, I'm going to speak to the way you need to talk, the way you listen. And when I started doing that, I started having much more success, moving up through companies much faster, being the person that's out there bidding jobs when I didn't know what I was even bidding, but I could communicate well with people to where I could get the information I needed bring it back to the people who knew what it was, and then they could explain it to me. But I could just talk well enough that they let me move up through companies that I probably shouldn't have sometimes, but it worked out well. So for me, it's always been communication, how you communicate with people.
That's great. Well, what do you think, Gerald?
Well, that was a good answer. I was going to say communications too, but he nailed that one. So I'd like to add honesty and compassion to that for a soft skill. Uh, we don't know what other people are going through. We might get to a job site that the customer might just seem like they're in a bad mood or rude, and maybe they're not like that all the time. Maybe they had some bad news or something. If you're running a project, maybe one of your electricians that's working under you, maybe something ain't going right for them. So always just take a step back and don't be too quick to judge them or to start arguing, because we don't know what they're going through, how they're feeling that day, and I just think that could prevent a lot of things if we just have a little compassion and try to understand the situation more and be honest with them. Just tell the truth about, well, especially to your customer. If you're doing a project for them, don't try to lie. Chances are they're going to know you're lying, and then you're just going to make yourself look worse. If the project's not going to be completed, if there's going to be a change order or something, just be honest.
Yeah, I love that. Kind of reminds me of something I tell my team too, is just, with people, assume positive intent, and we kind of live by that too. I don't think people are really out to, they don't come to work that day thinking of how they can do a poor job that day. Sometimes they're just having a bad day. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. What about, and I feel like, Devin, you kind of touched on this in your story, about a challenge. Any other challenges that you might like to share that maybe, our students might encounter, on the, in the field, that maybe you could give them advice on how to navigate?
That's a broad question, but I'll give you an example that happened on the job we were on. So we were renovating all the streets in downtown of the city I live in. We're talking ripping the whole road out, all new drain pipes, all new water lines, new everything, new electrical. And the city's so old, on one of the first phase they did, they started digging with an excavator, and they dug into a void underneath the city sidewalk where coal used to be fed through for the buildings, and an excavator almost went into the hole. Right? So they almost lost an excavator. That's a big issue, because now I'm going to hit the building. So we're talking safety, damaged equipment, but it didn't. Well, then we had to do another phase. So they realized what happened. So I was part of the second phase, like, okay, we need to go survey the road first now and figure out how many voids exist under the sidewalk. So we started going from building to building, knocking on doors, talking to them. There was 140 something we found voids under the sidewalk that nobody knew about, had access into buildings. So now we had to step back and realize, okay, you look at the skills involved, communication. We had to effectively communicate, scheduling. We had to now schedule with all these business owners who own these buildings. We had to get into their building first. And then and some people didn't want us in there, but we had to explain to them why this is a good thing. Okay, you've had water coming in through this hole. We're going to stop that from now on. That's never going to happen again. You've had other issues coming in. We're going to fix that problem for you. So for them to realize and understand, okay, no, this is a good thing. There's no point in fighting. Let's work together. But then just the simple trades. So now we had to schedule trades. We had to schedule masons in there. We had to schedule electricians to move some of the stuff that was out there. So then you start getting into kind of all those skills encompassed into one. Before the project started, that was not a part of the project. That was essentially to get ready, do prep work to actually begin the real project of renovating the whole streets. But it was something we had to do. We had to fix. That added probably about $500,000 to $750,000 to the project that the city had to pay us. So we had to work on the budget with them. So to work on the county aspect, because we didn't know what it's going to cost. They didn't know what it was going to cost. because some voids were as small as a lunchbox and some you could fit a school bus in. Like you just didn't know what was in between them. So that's one of those like real world, challenge that happened, that unpredictable, but then we had to figure out a massive solution for it. So it took numerous people and years of understanding and work to figure out the proper solution to deal with something like that. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but that's
that's great. Gerald, any challenges that you can think of that you would like to share and give advice on how to navigate those?
Yeah, there's actually a couple that comes to mind pretty quick. One of the challenges is working with the cities, the building inspectors. They don't always agree with what you're doing, or maybe they just don't understand at first what you're planning. So getting the permits and the rights to do things sometimes can be challenging. One thing is to know your job, know the building code, know the laws and rules about that, and you can be prepared. That way you can discuss it with the building inspector. Another thing is maybe you're doing a job in a high rise. You have a landlord, but you're doing a job for a tenant in the high rise. Well, now you have to deal with the customer and the landlord. So you're working with two different departments. Plus, you still have to have your license, your permit to work, and the building inspector has to agree with what you're doing. So again, knowing what you're supposed to be doing, the rules, the communication, like Devin spoke about a minute ago, you got to be able to communicate with that building inspector so they understand. Planning it, what comes first? That's something else Devin spoke on earlier. That can be a challenge when you've already you're so far into a project and you realize that there was another step that's supposed to come in there. That's got to be planned out. So these are things, some of the courses in this program, like the project management and stuff, that really helps with that too, to help the planning.
That's exactly what I was thinking, that some of our business courses or project management course can help get them ready to solve some of those challenges that they may face in the field.
Yeah.
So last one, is there anything that you can think of that maybe is, like a myth or something that people like tend to like misunderstand about like a career in construction trades management?
Well, I'd say people have this kind of myth of construction, not so much construction trades management as, oh, you're doing construction because you're not educated, or you're doing construction because you can't do better stuff, right? So I've been on plenty of jobs where you look down on me, but it's like, oh, you're not smart. What? I have an engineering degree. It's like, no, I know what I'm doing. I enjoy doing it. I love working with my hands. I love building things. So people have this comment sometimes, this misconception that, oh, you do construction because you can't do anything else. No, it's because I like to. I enjoy it. I love it. But it's not that at all. So I kind of look at these great civilizations in the world, from history. You look at them. What's everyone talk about? The things that they built. The Romans, the Egyptians. They always talk about the things that were built then by the builders. And so that's why I look at it too. I love building stuff. I love seeing something from nothing going to a massive high-rise structure. And I had a part in that. It didn't matter what the part was. I had a part in it. As the years grew, my part got more important and bigger sometimes. And I took more pride in that. But I definitely realized early on, it's not because people aren't educated. It's because people love doing this kind of work. And you can educate yourself. You can grow with it and grow with what you're doing. So that's a big misconception I think people as a whole have with construction. But
I love that. What about you, Gerald?
I have always heard a few things along with that. They think you either wear a tool belt and you hit with a hammer all day, or you lean on a shovel beside of a highway. There's just so much more to construction than what people realize. There's just so many different fields. There's so many different levels. We've showed some of these on the slides, the planners, estimators, foremans. There is so much. And as far as being the misconception about being uneducated or you can't do anything else. It takes a certain mentality to be able to do some of the technical aspects as far as electrical work or HVAC, the math that's involved in some of it. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's going to be challenging for everybody, but it's definitely, there's more to it. And then you can even look at the occupational outlook handbook at the what they're projecting the growth to be for the careers and the pay. And there's just so much growth with the trades and the management for the trades projected over the next several years. It seems like people are going into other fields, medical fields. They're going into IT and the computer fields. Well, now that market is getting saturated with computer technicians and nurses. Well, we still need electricians. We need plumbers. The small area I live in, if you're a plumber, you're going to be working 25 hours out of the 24-hour day because there's nobody that can do those trades. So it is technical. It does take some brain power, but it's a rewarding career. The outlook pay is also increasing and has surpassed a lot of the other fields now. So it's a really good field to get into, no matter which aspect of it you want to do.
And to segue on that, most things with construction, if you have the ability, you can move around. You're not in your city you can move around with it. It is so easy to move and find a job if you have an ability, like in construction field. It doesn't matter what it is, but they are so in demand across the country. You can move almost anywhere and find a job with it. So give you that much more flexibility.
Yeah, great point. Okay, well, so here's kind of where everything comes together. This is our stackable pathway of how students can move from our trade diploma and certificate to our Associate of Applied Science in Construction Trades Management, and then up to our Bachelor of Science in Construction Trades Management. And what is unique about Miller-Motte College is we allow you to transfer your credits from degree to degree. And what that does is it reduces your course load, streamlines your journey, and what it does is it moves you forward faster. So we have really great opportunities for you to move up those career ladders and through your journey in the field. So if you're ready to explore these pathways, here's your next step. Continue to explore the construction careers. You can book an appointment I'm so sorry, with your advisor or admission rep. And don't forget, we have Kate in the chat that you can, chat with and connect with to request some more program details and get connected to hopefully maybe enroll in one of our programs or see, what's the best next step for you. And don't forget that we are here to help you take the next steps. We're here every step of the way. You met two of your instructors, Devin and Gerald. They're just two of the instructors that you would have during your program who support you. We have tutors there. You have a whole leadership team, student services advisors that really support your success all along the way. So we just want to thank you again for joining us tonight for the Tools to Teams. And we hope that, we kind of helped you determine, some of the strengths that you have and maybe align them with some of your career paths that you would like to take in construction trades management. And please reach out to one of our admission reps or our advisors with questions. And we're so excited to support you in your journey. Anything that you would like to add at the end, Devin or Gerald?
Sure. One quick thing. When I first started on my journey to my bachelor's degree, the job I was working for, I didn't do college at first. I couldn't afford it. It was expensive. The job I worked for said they would pay me if I got a certain grade or higher. So I worked with the company I was at, so they started paying for my schooling to start. So if you are working in the construction field, have a conversation with your boss, your supervisor, to see if your company has that program. And sometimes if they don't, they will still work with you. You know, I've worked with you for 3 or 4 years. I want to continue my education so I can better work. They might have a requirement. Okay, we'll pay for it, but you have to stay for a certain amount of time after. It's still worth it. It's a way to continue your education, because guess what? You get your degree at the end of the day, no one can take that from you. That goes with you no matter where you're at. Your bachelor's, your associate's, bachelor's, master's, that goes with you. That is something you have earned. It's where if you're not happy where you're at, you can leave. You still take that degree. But I would still have that conversation with one of your supervisors to see, or HR, to see if they have a program that pay for it. A lot of companies do, because they want and they need people to run projects. And they also usually want to promote from within because they know your work ethic. And if you're willing to work all day, then go to college at night, they know you're committed. And so they oftentimes will work with you on that and help you. So I would talk about that too with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I have noticed there's a lot of companies that even if they don't pay for it up front, they have the tuition assistance or the reimbursement. So you can apply for that with a lot of companies. And if you could do loans until you finish the program, and it's usually you need a C or higher, I'm assuming, for your grades, but then they'll reimburse you for those, and you don't have to pay the loan. You pay the loan with your company reimbursement, or they might pay 75%. I think when I got my master's degree, the company I was working for then, they did a 75% reimbursement, which was a huge help.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, education can be expensive, but it's been very beneficial. It's helped me so much.
That's great. We do have a few more minutes. If anybody has any questions that you would like to ask Devin or Gerald before we get off the call.
Sure.
No questions yet? Okay. We'll give it a minute or so for any questions to come in. And then if not, again, reach out to one of your admission reps or advisors if you have any questions, and we're happy to answer any of those that you might think of later.
I can ask a question for Devin while we're waiting.
Sure.
Put Devin on the spot.
No problem.
Devin, what is your favorite trade out of all the trades? Electrical, HVAC, welding. Which one is your favorite?
Man, that's a hard one. I've never been asked that question before. I've worked like I said, I've worked almost every trade over the years in some form or fashion, whether it be the scheduler, the estimator, the project coordinator, the manager, or the guy in the field doing the work. I think with me is be more the framing aspect, because it's what you can see the most of, right? And I know that sounds weird, but you can really, really see that come to fruition. But if I'm doing the work myself, believe it or not, I like the finishing work, because at the end of the day, it's one of the harder ones to make look right.
Yes.
And it takes time. It's tedious. It's monotonous. It's very frustrating sometimes. But I like doing that, because at the end of the day, that's what you're going to see. Everyone's going to walk in and see the fine detail work that's right there. No one sees the electrical because it's behind a wall. As long as you turn the switch on, the lights come on, they're golden. As long as you turn your faucet on, water comes out the drain or out the faucet and goes in the drain, you're fine. You've done your job. But if you don't finish something right or frame something right, because you go in a house and the door is crooked, you'll notice that pretty quickly. So I think that it's that aspect, because that's what people are going to notice most. And that's what's going to stick with people, the most. If you can do the little things right, it doesn't matter how big the other things are, because those little things are wrong. It's not going to be right to everybody. So what about you?
That was a good answer. Yeah. I think for me, I like the electrical work more, but now I don't know because people don't see it. So I might change my answer, but there's something I like electrical work. I like seeing the cable ran, the conduit. My dad was a master electrician his whole career, and I just loved watching him bend the conduit and do the wiring. And then when he was in a management role, the conduit had to be perfect. If one of the electricians, if they didn't have it ran perfectly straight, they had to redo it. And I always admired that about him, how serious he was with his electrical work. So I've always enjoyed it as well.
Because just like that, that's one of those things. I did electrical for years. If your conduit wasn't perfectly in line, it didn't matter if everything else is right. Someone will look at it, if that's not right, and they instantly question everything else you did.
Yes,
Because that's one of
I
those things,
agree.
like I said, you have to take time to do the little things right. Because it doesn't matter if everything else is right, the little things are wrong, you're wrong. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much, man. Our students are walking away with a wealth of knowledge and advice. So thank you both so much for taking time out of your evening to share all of your expertise and knowledge with us tonight. And thank you again for joining us. And we hope everyone has a wonderful evening.